You built Green Mango Pest Control, coconut cleaning, agave auto glass, pineapple pools, and a couple of others.
I started Green Mango and all these service companies thinking like my son was going to run it one day. It was going to be generations because it just creates cash flow. And that's the thing that people always talk about is like, hey, generate a subscription model that just prints money like clockwork. But then in 2020, it got really hot, 17, 19 multiples on EBITDA. That was the first time where I was like, yeah, I'd sell.
What was the highest amount of people that you were servicing in Green Mango at the peak?
33,000 active subscriptions is what we had. I thought, once I sell, like my stress will go away. I've worked 15 years to get this money. Now I have it. And now there's this stress that what do I do with this money? There's so many different tax strategies to do and, investments to make. Like, what's your goal? The past 3 weeks has been too many financial advisors and everyone's got a different opinion, just like business. And now there's that stress of, man, what do I do now?
What would be your number one piece of advice for a young entrepreneur looking to get involved in maybe starting a potential home services company?
It all starts with the product. So find a product, be premium in that product and don't alter from it. And then just stay consistent. That's it. In the society that we live in now, everyone wants instant gratification. As long as you can stay consistent, you're going to win because everyone else is giving up so fast now.
Welcome back to another episode of the Austin Zaback Show. Today we've got a guest that's actually appeared on my show before. By popular demand, we have him back today with quite a bit of updates and different things that he has going on in his life. If you've ever wanted to get into the home services industry, whether it be pest control, carpet cleaning, whatever it might be, right? Pool cleaning, whatever the case might be, this is a podcast you're going to want to stay to the very end. In my opinion, Cameron, you're one of the best home service guys that I've ever met. You're young, you're killing it. You just went through a huge merger, which we're going to talk about. And you built Green Mango Pest Control, coconut cleaning, agave auto glass, pineapple pools, and a couple of others that we were talking about before the show. And it's just an honor to have you back here. And we're going to take the next 45 minutes and provide a bunch of value for everybody watching.
Oh, man, I appreciate you having me back.
Yeah.
I love it.
I was just on your show. And for any of you guys who don't know, you should go check it out. We'll link it all down below. But Cameron, you actually have two podcasts. You have Flying High with Cam.
Yeah.
And then you have, what's the other one called?
The Premium Mindset.
The Premium,
So the
okay.
Premium Mindset is more geared towards business. And then the Flying High with Cam is in the helicopter. Just, I don't know, meeting guys like you and whatever they're up to, just cool stuff.
Yeah, which is super cool. And I was on that one.
Yeah.
And you're a really good helicopter pilot. Yeah.
We're alive, man. We're alive.
How long have you been a pilot?
I got my license when I was 16. So I'm 36 now, man.
Dang.
20 years.
20
it's
years.
Crazy.
Yeah. And you just got a new helicopter.
I just got a new EC-130 T2.
How many passengers?
7.
Wow.
Yeah. But there's always someone above me, So like I went into the hangar yesterday and I think it was an Airbus H160. It seats 10 people. And I told Lex, I'm like, you can't tag him, but it was Mark Zuckerberg's helicopter for his private yacht.
Wow.
And it was the most beautiful twin engine. But anyways, it's fun, man.
There's always somebody doing it bigger and better, man. That's the problem with entrepreneurship. We were just talking about before the show. We just got the plaque, and I got it. And like literally in 10 minutes, I was like, we need the gold one.
We need the gold.
We need $1 million.
Throw it away. I don't even care about this one.
Yeah. But it's a blessing and a curse. It's the reason that people like you, change the world, ultimately provide jobs, right? Yeah. Create opportunity for people. I mean, entrepreneurship in America, that drive, that ambition to always move on to the next best thing is the reason that capitalism is even existent in America.
And it's hard. Like, I know you were joking with your fiance before here, but she was like, let's celebrate for a minute. And that's the hardest thing for guys like us is that it's one of our greatest blessings and greatest curses because a lot of people feel like they can't, meet our needs or they can't, make us happy because we're always moving on to the next thing. And that's a challenge when you're trying to run a business.
It is. Yeah. And it's something that maybe we'll talk about at the end of the podcast, but you really have to walk a fine line, right? Like you hear different people talk about like, take a minute and celebrate the journey, right? Yeah. But at the same time, don't get complacent. And it's kind of this like fine line you have to find of like being grateful and feeling grateful for what we've achieved, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, not being complacent or satisfied with that very thing, And it's just like, it's such a fine line. You almost can't even find it sometimes, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I want to dive in really quick. I really want the viewers because home services, really the way that I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, during COVID at some point, I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But it was like everybody, I think, realized, not everybody, but a lot of big entrepreneurs, I think, realized that, and private equity and really the whole world, right? They woke up and they said, for whatever reason during that time, it was like home services are a recession proof most of the time. I mean, it depends on the company, right? But a lot of the times they can be a recession proof industry. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, if your toilet breaks, I mean, you need to get it fixed. It doesn't matter what's going on in the economy.
Right.
It doesn't matter if the stock market is up or down. If your toilet's broken, you're calling a plumber, right? And, and it's interesting, right? And you look at that industry as a whole and it's grown. The multiples have gotten way bigger. Everything about it has gotten pretty insane.
Yeah.
And, you're somebody who not only built one home service company, but 5 or more,
Yeah.
And a lot of them at the same time. So it wasn't like, you built one and sold it and then built another and sold it. Like you were building multiple simultaneously, which is a whole nother beast of its own, right? Maybe for the viewer, Cam, that didn't see the first podcast that we did.
Yeah.
What was the first home service company that you got involved in?
So we started with Green Mango in 2010. And again, like you were talking about, the multiples at the time, 10 to 12 times of EBITDA.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what it was. COVID comes, people are knocking on your door at 17 to 22.
Wow.
Tommy Mello got 22 for his, when he sold out some of his share in A1 garage doors. It's absolutely phenomenal. And so that's why, kind of going towards the story is like, I started Green Mango and all these service companies thinking like my son was going to run it one day and maybe his, it was going to be generations because it just creates cash flow. And that's the thing that people always talk about is like, hey, generate a subscription model that just prints money like clockwork. And that's what I did. But then in 2020, you had all these, it was roughly around 2021. 2020, it got really hot, 17, 19 multiples on EBITDA. And that was the first time where I was like, yeah, I'd sell,
Yeah.
And that's when we first started looking into the potential of merging or selling with a company.
Dang. So Green Mango Pest Control, first home service company you ever get into. When did you start that company officially? Like what year? How old were you?
So I was 22. So it was November of 2010. So I just got off a mission from my church, got home, and I was a horrible student. And it was probably like the loneliest time of my life because up until that point, everything for me was lined up. Hey, you're going to, go to school. You're going to go to high school. You're going to play on the basketball team. Not like you're going to, but it's like, you're going to play sports and we want you to get your Eagle Scout. We want, my dad did real estate. So that's when I got all my aviation licenses. So I do like half day of school and then go out to the airport, the other half and train and get all my licenses. So single engine, multi-engine, instrument, and helicopter. I got all before I was 18. And then I left on my mission, came home, and now it was, I wanted to do real estate like my dad. That's what he did with the helicopter. He'd show investors the land from the air, right?
No way. Yeah.
And when I got home in 2009, just the economy was horrible. And that's when I just had to pivot. But my parents didn't have anything. I didn't know anything. And I got recruited to go work for another pest control company. Long story short, ended up not going. And I started a car washing company, like a car wash / detailing company in 2009. Or no, that was 2010. And just quickly realized like, washing cars for $40 was not my game and not how I was going to get, generate wealth. And then my buddy who actually went out and sold that summer came back and was like, you're right. I wish I didn't go. Like, great company, but I wish I didn't go. Let's start our own thing. And so, we started it.
Wow. That's so cool. And when you first started, what did you like have to purchase? Like, what did you have to get in order to start that first, like couple clients and people you're servicing? Like, did you buy a truck? Did you have to go buy a bunch of chemicals? I mean, what did that look like initially?
Yeah. So, we each brought a truck to the business. So and then to outfit a truck is about $5,000.
Okay.
And that was the last $5,000 I had. Up until that point, like I never had a job. I don't even know how I had $5,000 in my bank account, but about $5,000, outfit the truck with the power sprayer, the toolbox, all that stuff. The product's so cheap. And so we would just buy, chemical, like each day at a time as we needed it, because we couldn't afford like a backstop. And we just started knocking doors. You know, we rented our QP license, our qualifying party license, did all this stuff with the LLC, which that's cheap, like what, a couple $100 or something. And I'll never forget, like, that first night we went out and knocked doors, and I'd never knocked doors at this point, but my business partner, Dusty, who I started it with, like, he was the best. He's the best salesman ever.
Yeah.
And he had, at that time, he was only 24, but he had like 5 years of knocking experience, because all during high school, he knocked for a local company here. And, so I remember going out with him. He's like, I'm going to teach you how to knock doors. Like, we're going to be the biggest pest control company. Like, we're going to do this, you know?
Yeah.
And we bageled the first night, dude. I was like, what did I get myself into? But the next day we found this little neighborhood, and ironically enough, it was called Cameron Ranch, and it was on Wrecker and Baseline. And we just slayed that neighborhood, dude. Like, every day, like 10, 12 accounts, just freaking, he would knock, I would spray, he would spray, I would knock, and we just went ham.
Dang. Were you signing people up at that time on a subscription?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What were you charging at the time? Like $100 a month?
$62 bi-monthly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
That's wild.
And now our average is 129.
Yeah.
So it's doubled.
So you've gone way up. I mean, obviously inflation and everything too, of course, you know, because this is back in 2009.
2010. Yep. 2010.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. And you built that. So from when would you say, like, it went from, you know, you and Dusty kind of just out there shaking and baking to you're like a legitimate company, like you're hiring employees, like you're like, how many years until you would say you were pretty legitimate?
5 years. Yeah. Year 3, we want, like, literally and I don't know if I talked about this on the first show, but, you know, every entrepreneur has that story where you just like can't figure out how people are making money.
Sure.
We went through the same thing. I was out in Maricopa spraying a route, and I was highly allergic to a lot of the products that we use, because when you're spraying them, like, they're the raw product, and then once they dry, they get encapsulated. And so, like, my allergies are going crazy. I'm in the back of, you know, this house in Maricopa that's, you know, ran down, you know, dog poop everywhere. It's middle of the summer. It's horrible. I'm on a 3-way call with my dad. And at this time, my dad had been an investor. And I remember saying, like, Dad, if we can find someone just to pay back your investment, like, we will give it to you. Wow. And at the time, it was like around a couple $100,000 that he had into it. And luckily, no one would buy Green Mango from us for $200,000.
Thank God.
And so, yeah, I mean, but so we just had to, like, I didn't want to give up, because I owed my dad money, and I had that pressure. And I did not want to lose my dad's $200,000. So I just kept showing up. And that's, you know, looking back now, when people ask, like, how do you do it? It was just by showing up every single day and staying consistent with the little things that you do.
Sure.
And over time, it's phenomenal. It's what everyone, like, in your stage with a huge following that says, is like, you just have to stay consistent by putting out content. Business is no different. You need to stay consistent with your meeting schedule, with the time that you show up, the hours that you work, the product that you offer. And if you do those, you know, few things that you feel like are critical for a business to be successful, like, after, I don't know how many years, like, for me, it was 6 years before I started making money at Green Mango, but, like, you will be successful. And that's the difference. Like, that's it.
Yeah, it really is. You know, there's like that super cliche saying that you hear, it's like kind of floating around the internet, which is like, it takes 10 years to become an overnight success, right? And I think a lot of people, and 10 years is some people, like, to your point, like, you can do it quicker, right? Yeah. Like, I've seen people do it in 3, I've seen people do it in 5, I've seen people do it in whatever, you know, length of time under 10, but really 10 years is this kind of magical number where I don't even know how to explain it, but when you get to year 10 and you've been doing everything you just talked about for those 10 years, like, dude, you know, something just shifts, and you become somebody that everybody knows. Like, all of a sudden, like, you're the guy, right? And it's crazy, dude. I mean, I'm going on year, right now is year 11 for real estate, right?
Cool. Yeah.
And I feel it, right? Like, it doesn't mean that I wasn't making good money 3, 4, 5 years ago. Yeah. But right now, you know, there's this massive, it's different. And I don't know how to explain it. Like, I can almost go anywhere. Somebody will recognize me. People know who I am and what I do, right? And it just took a lot of years of doing this and everything, you know, but truly incredible. So really quick, I want to talk about, you know, you go from, you know, 2010, you and Dusty out there in Cameron Ranch, right? To, you know, probably like 2014, 15, you're starting to become like a legitimate company. You're starting to hire people, scale, right? What was the highest amount of people that you were servicing in Green Mango at the peak? And this might have been recently. Like, where did it get to before you did the merger, which we'll talk about in a minute?
Well, so 33,000 active subscriptions is what we had. And then there was roughly another 42,000, not another, but another 11,000 of customers that were not like subscription, but hey, we come out quarterly or bi-yearly, stuff like that.
Got it.
So
it's a lot of people.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And what did at that time did the yearly gross revenue look like for that company roughly?
26 million, yeah. And then we were hitting 32% EBITDA margins.
Wow.
You know, in the summer, which was absolutely crazy. I couldn't believe it because the summer times where we have the most expense. It's the most product we're putting down, the most overtime we're paying, all the initials are coming in. We hit 36% margins in July and August of this year. Like I was like, are you sure?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
You're talking to your accountant like, that can't be right.
Yeah.
That's honestly truly impressive, right? And we're going to dive deep into that. You know, what would you say, looking back at Green Mango in particular, was the biggest challenge in getting it to that point? Because you had, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you told me last time you had roughly 175 trucks, give or take, in total.
When I sold, we had 130 trucks.
130.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the most.
The most. Okay. So 130 trucks, which would mean roughly 130 techs, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bit more because you have people that don't show up or whatever the case might be, right?
Yeah.
What was the biggest challenge? I mean, looking back, you know, getting it to that point, was it sales and marketing? Was it retention and training employees? Was it culture? Was it like, you know, you see all these different challenges building a company, right? Like if you had to pinpoint like the biggest challenge, the thing where you like would wake up in the middle of the night or you would call Dusty and you'd be like, dude, like, I don't know how to solve this problem. Like, I don't know how we're going to get through this, or I don't know how we're going to get to that, like break through that ceiling. Like what do you think that would be?
Money to go finance or get vehicles. Like growth was never really a problem for us. We were like, the first 5 years it was, you're right. But once we were established and we got that momentum, like it was just this rocket ship of continual growth. We had so many hard problems getting finance on the vehicles because no one looks at pest control accounts as collateral. Even though we have 1 year contracts, all this money in revenue, you know, it was hard. Like obviously the last 6-7 years, it was really easy, but that was really difficult at the beginning. And then culture, like I'm not the greatest at culture, and Dusty certainly wasn't. And like finding the right people that could carry out our vision and do the things that need to happen from a manager standpoint to have a good buy-in and culture was probably the most difficult thing for us. And truly, you know, I talked about it in a podcast a couple of weeks ago. Like that was the first time I cried when I did the merger, sitting in that room when I'm about to introduce PestCo to the team and let everyone know. It was the first time everyone was in the room as a company. There was over 150 people in this room, and they were talking about the anniversaries and birthdays. And like, I felt like I was at like this Super Bowl, like stadium arena, because everyone was cheering and like happy for their coworkers. And it was like, man, I finally did it. And now like, I'm kind of done, you know? And it was just like, I had to bounce out of the room, and like, I went into my office, I like literally lost it. And then I was like, I got to pull it together here, got it back together, came back in the room and, you know, gave my presentation. But I think the culture, because it's so hard to find, there's so many companies out there that are missing the culture aspect of it. And because of that, like they're just never going to hit their marks.
Yeah. How do you think, and we're going to talk in a minute because I want to dive into, you know, Pineapple and dive into these other home service companies and how you built multiple at the same time and some other value for the listeners. But how did you build that culture? Like, was it practically just, you know, having a really good interview process to weed out, you know, bad culture fit? Was it, you know, events? And I see you cook like pancakes and bacon and like breakfast for these people. You just gotta
cook pancakes, man. That's it. I'm just kidding.
But like, what was it? Or was it having really good managers, like higher level executive types of people that you could really rely and trust on to, you know, like what was that like kind of secret sauce if you had to kind of think about it like that?
I wish I could take credit. It's not me. It's the next person below me. It's my managers that understand my vision and are willing to hold the line and do what you want them to do, and then respect comes, right? So what I mean by that, and I'll use the example, our West Valley branch manager, like I thought our culture was good, right? And then he said, hey, I'm gonna go start my own pest control company. That's pretty typical for us. I'm gonna go do this. And at first I was really scared because of the culture that was there. Well, this next guy comes in, and if our culture was at like a 6 or a 7 out there, now it's at a 12. And the difference is that not only would this guy hold the line and, write people up, he would go out and work. So if he wanted them to take another stop, he wouldn't just call them and say, hey, I need you to pick up this stop. It's like, hey, you're picking up this stop, but I'm coming to do it with you. So he's working beside them. And so this level of respect came from this individual. And then when that respect is there, people will show up to work on time. They will come to the parties. They will, they will ask for a review. They will ask for, a referral, be not for the company, but because of their manager, because that buy-in and that culture is built there. And so it's all about that person. But what would happen is with other managers is they would just kind of, oh, you didn't do your truck inspection? Like, just make sure you do it next week. Well, you give, employees are like children. You give them an inch, they take a mile. And they just start taking advantage of you everywhere. And all of a sudden it's like, your company's not jiving 100%. It's good, but it's not great. So when you have someone come in and they're almost a drill sergeant of like, hey, you don't have your truck inspection. Well, I'm going to write you up. And if you do it again, unfortunately, you're just not the type of person we want working here. And so I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. And it's hard. We lost probably 15 great, not even lost. We let go 15 great technicians this past year. That have been with me for multiple years, but they didn't want to follow our systems and our processes. And what we did is we created like the Tom Belichick and the Tom Brady and the Bill Belichick way. It's the Patriot way. It's the Green Mango way here. You either get on board and you catch the vision and do everything perfectly, and we'll reward you for that, or like you're just not going to fit in here and you're not going to feel comfortable.
Sure.
And that's the difference.
It's so powerful, dude.
Yeah.
Huge golden nugget right there. Everybody should go back and rewatch that. When did you start your second home service company? So now here you are building Green Mango back in 2014, 2015. At what point did you add an additional company, and what was that second company you added?
Yeah. So 2015 or so, 2016, we finally got smart and hired managers, okay. Right? And we're so used to working these crazy amount of hours from 6 o'clock till 10 o'clock at night that when I hired these managers, like I worked myself out of a job essentially. And so working an 8-hour day, I was feeling lazy, and I wasn't making at the time I wouldn't admit it, but looking back now, I wasn't making the money that I wanted to make. And I just felt like Green Mango was set. It's good to go, And so I thought, well, if I can go create these other service companies and just make $250,000 a year from each service company, then I'll get to my, the goal was $2 million a year at the time.
Yeah.
And so that was my thought process. So I started these companies. So I first started a security company. And at the time, Dusty and I were it's a typical partnership, like we were having our problems. Like we got along most of the time, but it was just kind of like we needed a break. Like that 5 years that we spent together was like 15 years because of the amount of hours we were working together, going through the, the pains and the sorrows and all that comes with it. And he wanted to do pools, and I just didn't love the pool model. And I really wanted to do alarms. I love that model,
Yeah.
So we kind of broke off silently a little bit. He went to do pools. I went to do security. And after about a year, we saw that each of our companies needed, what the other partner had to offer.
Yeah.
So we came back together, and at the time there was an investor that I had, and he wanted to fund all these service companies and wanted to go all in. And so we got really aggressive. And, when you talk about all the companies that I've started, like, I'm like, man, it just comes off as like a jack of all trades. I didn't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So what we would do is we would find a partner in each company that had experience in that industry and give them equity. And it would be their Green Mango for them. Like it's everything. It's what they live by and it's what they breathe. And so we were able to start all these companies within an 18-month span because we had the investor money Dusty and I brought the marketing, the systems and processes, and kind of the recognition to the table. The investor brought the money, and then the partner that we partnered in each company brought the expertise in that field. And that's how we were able to start so many all at once.
See, that's really important, right? Because, you know, I have a saying, which is it kind of goes with the saying, if you chase two rabbits, you'll catch neither.
Right.
I have the saying, you just have to hire somebody to catch the other rabbit, right? And, you know, I love that you said that. Out of curiosity, while we're on the subject, where would you find the people that you would put as like the partner in that particular company, in any one of them? And then if you can, maybe give me an idea of like, just for the viewers watching, if they're in maybe a similar situation, what is a rough amount of equity that you could give to somebody that to like help you build and scale and make that their baby, where it's enough equity to where they really think it's their baby, but it's not, you're not giving away the company. Like,
So we give away 20 to 30% of the company. And like if we felt like it worked, the problem is, like, I love your saying there with the two rabbits, there's so much that goes into being a business owner that it's kind of this weird hybrid for these partners. Like, it's their company, but we're still own 70% or 60% of it. And so when no one's in charge, or like when everyone's in charge, no one's in charge. And there was certainly those problems with those companies where they just get a false sense of security with us, and we're relying on them to do their part. And, you know, not all the service companies were a success. When I lost my investor, we had to make a decision, like, which companies are taking up the most time and which companies do we not feel like is going to provide that return that I'm looking for. And so, you know, when that happened, I had to basically fire sell a lot of the companies, just because my day was just so crazy. Like, every Tuesday morning, I'd start my meetings at 6 o'clock, one-on-ones with all the managing partners and the CFO. I wouldn't get done till like 3 o'clock. And you think about like the decision fatigue and those moments, like high level, hard decisions, like startup companies experiencing this rapid growth. And then you have a business partner that knows the industry, but they've never ran a company before. They don't know how to manage people. They don't know how to, you know, drive culture. It was crazy. It was the craziest time of my life.
Do you think that could be solved in retrospect? Obviously, hindsight's 20/20, right? Do you think that could be solved by hiring or finding a partner that you gave that 20 or 30% to, that not only knew the industry very well, but had like some type of managerial or some type of, maybe they owned a company in the past, like they understand marketing and sales and management and different things like that? Like, would that solve the problem, or would you still have, I mean, of course you're always going to have problems.
There's just different levels of management and growth, and the type, like we were spending $450,000 a year. Let's see, what was it? No, it was $40,000 a month, for each company just in marketing. And so our growth, like, we were growing way too fast. We've talked a little bit about the pool company, cause I know you have interest in that. I try and talk you out of it.
every time. Cameron's tried to talk me out of it like 5 times.
I can't wait to see you do it. But like getting pools is the easiest thing in the whole world. Well, now you have this guy, and it's no offense to him, like we had to learn it too, right? But you have this guy that's trying to manage 5,000 pools and, you know, deal with all the things, all within we grew it in 2 years that quickly. Repairs, the chemical side, the training, the HR side, the culture, the finance, the routing. It's just too much, man. So like there is value in nailing it before you scale it too. And that was our problem, is we tried to open up those 5 companies in 18 months with people that weren't ready for the growth. We weren't ready for the growth. And then we experienced this, like, again, the sales were never an issue for us. And so when all that growth happened, it was just too much too fast.
What does it, just out of curiosity, with the pineapple pools, I know you say you fire sold it, but do those types of companies have a similar EBITDA to like a pest control company, or is it lower because pools is different?
Honestly, man, it was like 6 years ago now, 7 years. So
it's like
it's definitely, it's pre-COVID. And it's definitely not as strong as pest control, just because the margins aren't as strong either.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know, so at what point did you then decide, like, okay, we're going, and which companies, I guess, did you sell, and which did you shut any of them down and just say, hey, we're done with that?
So the only one that I didn't sell was our Phoenix Power, which was our solar company, because there's nothing really. We were just a sales company selling to the installers.
So
But
you're the middleman,
yeah,
kind of white labeling.
We were just taking advantage of all of our not that sounds bad, but it's like we would utilize our customer database to sell solar to, and it worked great. But then I had just some challenges there, and I just shut it down.
Yep.
But pineapple I sold, black hat I sold. And then I just sold agave. So right now I just have coconut. And then, we merged with Green Mango.
What do you think about coconut so far? I mean, obviously you did 3 franchises now, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
4. Okay.
Yeah.
And, you said you kind of are at like a fork in the road, right? Like you could franchise it 95 more times, or you could not do that. I mean, like, what are you kind of thinking now with that company? Cause that's your last company now.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it in a minute, but you actually just recently went through a merger with Green Mango, which was the biggest of all the companies, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that was obviously a really big deal for you.
Right.
And I want to talk about that in a minute too, because I know a lot of people are really curious about that. But with coconut, what do you see the vision of that being? And what do you do exactly? Is it carpet cleaning, furniture cleaning?
Yeah. Any type of surface that you have at your home. So carpet, tile, anything like that, we clean.
Okay.
I love that company. I just haven't put like, my partner there is great, and he's helped me out a lot at Green Mango, but we haven't put like our full focus and effort into it. And we're still doing $6 million in revenue, which is probably the top 5 company in Arizona for carpet cleaning. It's not horrible, but I think it has a lot of potential. But again, I'm learning from myself and looking at these franchises, and they're struggling right now because they're running our old model. They've been out for 2 years now, and we've changed so much in the past 2 years that could help them, probably profit another 20% for them, but they're not like wanting to try because there is risk in it. But we're saying, hey, so I want to get into there and work with them and nail that. And then I want to go sell 20 franchises in 2026. I think that's possible. And then at 20 franchises, look back and decide, how much more I want to grow it or what that looks like. But
why that company out of all the companies did you choose the franchise model?
We kind of got forced into it. So we had 4 amazing salesmen that were working for us and making great money. And they just came to us one day and said, hey, we're either going to be your competitors or we want to grow, or we want to buy a company. And this was coming off the time where like I've been exhausted. I personally guaranteed like every single vehicle in all 5 companies. Now I've taken on the $4 million debt loan from our investor. And I'm like, I do not want to go partner with this guy, and I know what he's about to go through, and no offense to him, but like there's lessons that he needs to learn before he scales this company, and I don't want to pay for his mistakes.
Sure.
And so franchising was the best way of like keeping a piece of the pie, but also putting all the financial obligation on them. So it was about $100,000 to go through and get an FDD made. I mean, franchising is no joke, and it's they take it very seriously. That's heavy regulated, so you got to make sure you have the right attorneys in place and the right counsel. I mean, even monthly we're talking to our legal counsel, hey, can we send this, can we do this, can we do that with these guys, because it's just when those things fail, the biggest risk out there is that they're going to come back and sue us and blame us for failing. And so I want to get in with those guys, nail that and go. But I love coconut. And the reason why I keep that is because I think it could be bigger than Green Mango.
Really?
The profit margins are there. The brand is there. Say that again.
Based on what? Like what makes you think it could be even bigger?
There's this weird thing with, social marketing or influencer marketing is so popular right now. And it's like a keeping up with the Joneses. If your wife got coconut out today and you have this dirty couch and they pull a stripe and she records it and posts it and then like puts the brand out there and like, hey, we just got our house cleaned by coconut, the moms that follow her like get this FOMO of like we want to be involved in it too. And so it just works so well.
Yeah.
And again, we've created a subscription model with it because I come from pest control and I want that subscription. No other carpet cleaner's been able to figure it out. A lot of them have seen our model and wanted to duplicate it, but for whatever reason they've failed. And so we have this reoccurring revenue in this carpet cleaning business that no other company has that I know of. And so that's huge. And then the franchising opportunity is like the franchises are easy to sell. Like there's so many people that want to buy franchises. It's choosing the right person.
Yeah, sure. How did you create a subscription model in the cleaning industry? I mean, what is it just well, I mean, but like what, are you just saying, hey, like we'll clean your carpet every 6 months? I mean, I can't imagine it's every month.
No, I'm just playing. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. When we got into the industry, our competitor was Zero Res, and their average customer that they would see is one time for every year and a half.
Okay.
And we're sitting here thinking that's not going to work. So we created this, what we call the Coconut Club. So we come out quarterly and we give them basically a huge discount off of our pricing to be a preferred partner of ours.
Wow.
And there's a joining fee up front, and then like lifetime memberships that we sell for them, that, if they want to call us, you have a dog, you don't have kids yet, but you'll learn when you do have kids, they throw up everywhere, and it's like, you don't want your whole house cleaned, but like a reservice the same day. So if you're part of our Coconut Club and you're on our lifetime membership, we'll come out for free, either that day or the next day, and clean up your carpet where your dog had an accident or your kid threw up or whatever. And that's huge for people. I'm not saying that's why they sign up, but it's just a luxury. No one has that from a carpet cleaning business. And then when we do come out, instead of your sectional being $400 to clean, we're doing it for $200, and it's convenient. And that's the number one thing. And that from everyone's trying to be the most convenient. It's a pain in the butt. Everyone forgets to call their carpet cleaner and that's why it is every year and a half. But we call you, hey, it's, your Coconut Club subscriptions coming up. We can be out there Monday or Tuesday, which one works best for you. Great. We come in, and the idea is that, we do the 3 areas of carpet, 3 areas of tile, but we rotate throughout your house. So if we do the living room one quarter, we'll do the bedrooms the other quarter, and then we rotate around your house. And so within the year, we've hit like the 4 different sections of your home where like everything's cleaned and staying fresh.
Yeah, it's really cool. How many total vans do you have on the road with Coconut now?
I think there's 15 or something.
15?
Yeah.
So $6 million a year with 15 vans is a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like, so each van is able to like go bring in quite a bit of revenue.
Yeah. So our average job, which is absolutely phenomenal, again, when we got into the industry, Zero Res with their salesmen, like if a guy did $250, like he was the man. Our guys are pulling $450, $500 a job average every single day.
It's insane. Yeah. So the goal is to continue to scale that, continue to grow that, potentially franchise it more, right? And then, I mean, maybe exit one day or merge or something. I mean, how does that even work with the franchise model? I guess it's doable, right?
I'm going to leave that up to my business partner because this is kind of like his baby. Sure. I would love the cash. Well, I mean, if the right multiple comes along, like, of course, and the multiples are there, but you can sell them you can sell your company as a franchise, and the multiples are ridiculous for that. Even I've heard 16, 17, which is almost as high as Pest Control right now. So
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really is insane. Where did you find that partner for that company? Like, how do you find these? Cause let's go back to that really quick. Cause I don't think you answered that one. How do you find good partners? Like, is this like, I go on Instagram and like, how is it a friend of a friend? I mean, where do you find really good quality partners?
Well, I don't have good partners, man, but I'm just kidding. So Evan is my business partner at Coconut, and he was introduced to me through a buddy who knocked doors for us. So Evan knocked with us in 2011 as a salesman. He went and did like this medical sales thing, and then he got recruited to Zero Res, opened up a branch, and that didn't work out for him. And when he came back, I just scooped him up and just said, hey, this is what Dusty and I are wanting to do. Do you have any interest? And the next week he was on a Coconut van.
Dang.
And so I love I was joking, like I love all my business partners, but it's just networking. And that's why I've decided to like double down on my personal brand. And the value of it is that when you put yourself out there and you network and you don't have an agenda with people when they want to meet you, or, you just get out and network with people, like there's value there, and that's what I'd say. Like all my business partners are through a relationship that I've had, that I've cured, and they, when I said, hey, I want to do this, oh, you should talk to so-and-so. And most of the time they were employees of that company. They weren't owners. And so when you go and give them, paint this vision that, hey, you could be an owner with us, and it helps that we have the track record of Green Mango, they catch the vision of what we're wanting to do. So
yeah, it's
just
super
networking.
Cool. Yeah, just networking. Yeah, I always say it's not about what you know, but who you know.
Yep.
right? And I really believe that, dude. I mean, I think that, when I look at me in my life, like I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I mean, I'm intelligent, I think, but I didn't do well in school. I'm not like an ultra smart guy, right?
Yeah.
But I know a lot of really talented people, right? And even in my companies, dude, I hire people that are legit better than I am at the task that they're going to be doing. Like, my partners, my employees, and my different people that I have, like, they're literally better than me, and you want that, right? I think somebody said once upon a time, you don't have to go to Harvard, you just have to hire somebody who did.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that saying, because if you know the right, and I think of Elon anytime I think about that. Elon's obviously a brilliant human being.
Right.
No question about it, right? But for him to own Starlink, SpaceX, Tesla, the Boring Company, right? Neuralink, he has some unbelievably intelligent people that work for him.
Yeah.
Like, no question, right? Because, I mean, he can't be in each company all the time, and so, and he doesn't know the finite details of every single company. Sure, he knows a lot of them. I'm sure Elon himself could build a rocket and go to space, but he has the best rocket engineers on the planet, that are working for him, right? And so, it is so, I love entrepreneurship.
Well, I will say this to that, because I've had a lot of that's the other thing, like who you surround yourself with is very important. And I've seen a lot of people, like, once they have the wealth and they have the success, they become pricks. And to me, you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
Because if you're just nice to everyone, no matter who they are, and I'm not saying be nice because someday, like, they'll give you something back, but it's just crazy how the universe works like that. If you're just nice to people and, they see that you're up to cool things, or you're up to something different, or you're looking for a business partner because you're wanting to start, a pool company, dude, if you said that, you'd get probably 15 referrals of guys, of hard workers that you could interview and talk to, and you would find that guy just because you're a cool, nice guy, that's it. But if you're a prick, and you're out here showing, oh, look what I have, I'm this successful guy, like, no one's going to refer you anyone. And that's the mistake that people make too. That's why I feel like I talk about Tommy a lot, but, he's literally like, he's one of the most successful people I know. And when I first got introduced to him a couple of years ago, it was from a referral of a guy that I barely knew.
Wow.
And it was like, hey, like, this guy wants to go to lunch. And at the time, I could have been a bum on the street. He didn't know who I was. And he met me at a diner for lunch, and it's like, that's cool.
Super cool. For people who don't know, Tommy Mello is the owner of A1 Garage.
Yep.
And I think, I could be wrong, I don't know if this is public information or not, but I think his company got valued for like $750 million.
Yeah,
give or take.
In the next couple of years, he'll sell for $1 billion.
Okay.
But
yeah. So, I mean, we're talking about a garage door company.
Yeah.
He's been doing it for what, 8 years?
I think it's a little bit longer.
A little longer?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's say 10 or 11 or 12. I mean, it doesn't matter. Still, to get a company like that
it's insane
to, nearly $1 billion, valuation, I mean, is unbelievable.
But he's doing the things, I resonate a lot with him, because he's like us. He's not the smartest guy, and he's okay admitting that. And he is very smart.
Sure.
But he surrounds himself with great people. He's a good guy himself, and he just stays consistent every single day.
Yeah.
That's it.
So,
and he delegates, and that's his thing. I'll out-delegate anyone around me. You might be smarter than me, but I'll out-delegate, and I'll find the people. And he'll hire the coaches. He has like 7 coaches right now.
Wow. Investing yourself. Got to invest in yourself. Okay, I have a question for you. If you had to start, if I put a gun to your head and I'm like, Cameron, you got to start a home service company today, and it can't be in any of the industries that you've ever done home services before, is there one that comes to mind?
Well, the only one that I haven't done is HVAC and plumbing. I would probably do, I would choose the one that's easier to train the technician. And I don't know if that's HVAC or plumbing, but when you start to scale, that becomes one of your biggest problems. That's Tommy's biggest challenge. He spends a ton of money on training these garage door techs. Pools. That's why I told you it's really hard to train a pool guy.
Yeah.
And so I would try and find that one, but HVAC and plumbing is the only 2 I haven't done. So.
You have like roofing. Would you consider that home service or not really? Because it's like once people only need a new roof every 15 years, I guess.
And I love Jason Payne, owner of State 48, but like, he was kind of down the other day, and I was kind of reading his body language, but I was like, how was monsoon season? He's like, what monsoon season? I was like, oh, you probably didn't have a good year, because there was I don't want to rely on the weather or that's what I love. I love plumbing. I would love plumbing. I love HVAC. I love plumbing more, actually. I'd choose plumbing because, HVAC during the winter, you're out of business pretty much. Plumbing, you're always having a need, and it's an immediate action. Alarms were hard because once someone broke in, which it rarely happens, that's when the call to action would happen. And hopefully you're in front of that person. Pest control, they see the bug 3, 4, 5 times, and finally it's like, I'll call them. It's like, it's that constant nag. If if your toilet's broke, like it's running every day, you're not going to let it go for more than, I would say, a day, but maybe people go 2 or 3 days.
Sure.
But,
yeah. Well, Jordan Beebe, and Brittany Beebe, I introduced Jordan to you actually like a month or 2 ago. Really good guy. We actually did a business tour with them, and they've been on our show and stuff like that. And they sold Rooter Ranger, which is a plumbing company.
Oh, cool.
And they got acquired. And I don't know for how much, but
year?
a significant amount of money. No, they actually sold like 3 years ago, I believe. Then private equity.
I need to call him back.
Basically, he's a really cool dude, and I can even
he golfs and stuff, right?
Yeah, he's a big golfer.
He called me like 2 months before the sale, and he's like, I want to buy your company. I'm like, I'm not going through. I can't, man. I'm out of.
Because he texted me and he's like, dude, put me in contact with Cameron, and I'll re-intro you guys today. But really cool dude, right? You would love him. And he's getting into he actually just bought, and I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I think he just purchased like 3 poop cleaning companies, like dog poop, and merged them all together. So he bought like 3 different people's companies that each had their own route and their own customers. And I think he's in the process of actually bringing it all into one company under one umbrella.
Dude,
and
I love that.
Scaling that.
Dusty and I wanted to do that. We called it On the Spot. And Dusty's like a brand genius. He had this, like every dog makes that pose of pooping. So the logo is like that dog pooping, and the dog color is like that nasty brown, like poop color. It was the sickest logo, and called On the Spot.
Yep, for sure. But yeah, they sold their plumbing company, and they did very, very well.
Nice.
So I'm with you on that. When it comes to all of the things that you've done and everything that you've built, like I'm curious, like when it comes to the merger in particular, I guess, recently, because I was actually at an event like 2 weeks ago. Have you ever heard of the name Eric Spofford? Does that name ring a bell? He's a buddy of mine, and he just sold I want to say it was like a rehabilitation center that he built, and he built a bunch of them. So like he used to be a drug addict, and then he built a bunch of like rehab facilities.
Yeah.
And he just got acquired for $115 million. Like not too long ago. And he was speaking at an event that I was just at, and it was a really cool story because like he was like a full-blown drug addict, turned sober, now he sold for 9 figures, right? And he was telling the story about the day that, now for him it was an acquisition, for you it's a merger, right? But he was telling the story about the final day, right? And like leading up to it. And dude, I was captivated. Like I'm the guy where like normally I was backstage, right? And it was a big event, a couple thousand people in the audience. And I remember being backstage, and there's like people trying to talk to me and stuff. I was like, hold on, I got to listen.
Yeah.
And because the way he told the story, he's like, it was so cool. But, it was like this build up, right? And it was like 10 months, and he didn't even think it was going to go through. Yeah. And then like they had a Zoom call that morning, and he's like got on the call not even thinking it was like real.
That's crazy.
And it was a crazy story, right? And then like, apparently like it all went well, no hiccups. He's like was expecting it to just blow up and everything go south, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we're done. And he's like, so what now? And like they're like, you're gonna get your wire, like, and that whole day apparently he was just refreshing his phone, and it was like 5 o'clock at night, and he's like, he called his attorney, he's like, and then all of a sudden it hit.
Yeah.
And he was like, it was like just the most unbelievable thing in the world. Like he literally didn't even think it was real, So I'm curious for you, building Green Mango all of these years, and it being your baby, right? And it being something that, you really poured your heart and your soul into, right? Your wife supported you, your family supported you. I mean, took a ton of your time and energy. What was it like to go through a merger, to even have somebody reach out to you? Like, did it seem real at the time? What's kind of your story?
Yeah, I mean, I probably need to, work on my story because his sounds familiar, but ours sounds like very similar. I met PestCo 2 years ago. And for the past, ever since PE came in the world, and ever since I kind of put it out there that I'd consider selling in 2021, we get hit up like constantly. I'd say like twice a month. Wow. It's nuts. And it's a huge compliment too, and, plugging that, if you're a business owner, take those meetings, even if you're not interested in selling, because you will learn so much about what they're looking for. And I just went to school. So I met PestCo 2 years ago. They gave us an offer. I just knew it wasn't right. I turned it down. Last April, of all people, my buddy Billy, he's he tints windows and he's awesome, but he rents out our warehouse at Green Mango, and he's just a simple guy, one of the hardest workers I know. Calls me one day and he's like, hey, I have a buddy that wants to buy Green Mango. Are you interested? And I said, Billy, no offense, man. I don't know if you think Green Mango is worth $1 million or, 150 million, but does your buddy have money? And he's like, yeah, he's got money. Talk to him. I was like, all right. So I get on, so we coordinate and we get on the phone. It turns out this guy's a broker. He kind of bait and switched me there. It's not the first time that's happened, but he said, I have a buyer for you. Are you interested? And I was going to partner with Tommy and like blow this thing up for the next 5 years, even more than what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of made it really difficult. But I said, I've met PestCo before. And if they can give me this multiple, I just want to stay on as a consultant, close within the next 6 months. And I gave him like 2 other kind of little things that were just important to me.
Sure.
I wanted to roll a little bit, but not too much. And I said I would consider it. And he came back and we were actually celebrating our anniversary. So it was April 20th for my wife and I. And he called me back and was like, they want to do it. As like, they will pay you that multiple as long as the numbers that you're saying are true. And so I was like, oh crap, like I have this great thing going on with Tommy. We have this plan. Anyways, long story short, we go through like the initial phase of due diligence where they just kind of check our books to make sure the EBITDA margins that I'm telling them are accurate. And then when it's time for the LOI to get locked up, I kind of got cold feet because I got this vision of like, dude, I want to get Green Mango to, at least $10 million in EBITDA. We were about 6 million at the time. And I want to, I just want to keep going. I got this fire, but then there's this other like, bird on my shoulder of, hey, you got these 2 kids, you got your wife. If you sold for this much, it'd be more than enough. And it was honestly a really hard time in my life because I've always wanted to be around Tommy and see what he can do. And he was telling me like, let's go do it. And so long story long, I went to Tommy and I just said, hey, after like lots of prayer and thought, I just feel like I got to take this opportunity. And Tommy was so cool, man. He said, I support you. And if they try and screw you, I'm here for you as the backup. And I was just like, what? Because when I thought I got to go talk to Tommy, I thought that he was just going to be like, screw you. Yeah. I'm out. Like, I can't believe you do this. He just spent 50 grand on a quality of earnings for us to go, to partner. And, and he was just I was like, I want to be like that guy, man. Like he was just so supportive and saying like, I'm here for you. And throughout the process, he would check in with me. But from April till when we closed October 2nd, it was the same thing. Like it never felt real. It felt like every call my broker would make, it would be like, hey, we're out, And so I just went through this like exhausting period of time, doing all like jumping through the craziest hoops you've ever jumped through, answering every single thing about your business that you could imagine. Right.
Yep.
And so kind of narrowing down to the last days, like we're getting really close. One of the big points too, is like when you finish the real quality of earnings, which they spent, about $500,000 on to do this. And that's how diligent they are.
Yeah.
They can adjust the purchase price there. And so I remember getting that call and it was like, your EBITDA checked out, we're moving forward. And it was like, okay, I'm one step closer. Right. And, we're going through it and we're like arguing about a couple things, like a week before, and they have planned for all their team members to fly in and, we're going back and through there. And so I really, again, like, man, I don't know if this is going through. I don't know if I can get over this. Now we're at this point of like, we're just both exhausted of going through this.
Sure.
And it was supposed to close October 1st and they were going to come present that morning. I was supposed to get the wire that morning and then I would show up and like present it to my team. Well, the hurricane in Florida happened and there was only one document that needed to be wet signed.
Yeah.
And I was actually in Lake Powell. I went through all this effort, drove in the channel, like printed the papers, went in this hole in the wall FedEx place in Page, Arizona, making sure I got everything signed right. And I ship it out and it gets caught up in this storm.
Yeah.
And so like we're sitting there Sunday night and they're like, hey, you got to make the call, Cameron. Do you want to present on Tuesday? The money, even if we get the papers tomorrow, the money won't hit till Wednesday. And I'm like, man, we have this celebration dinner Tuesday night at Steak 48, you know, like, so I'm sitting here, how much do I trust these guys?
Yeah.
You know? And ultimately I just said, all right, like I'm trusting you guys with my baby. If I don't think the money's going to hit on Wednesday, like what am I doing giving you my baby? So
Right.
I stood up that morning and, you know, told everybody about what's going on. And it was like the coolest experience ever. Right.
Really?
And went throughout that day, business as usual. Like it was just the same. Right. The next morning we just bought that helicopter. So I go out to I go out to meet with my mechanic because he's working on some stuff. And we're like trying to finish this and trying to finish that. And they need this document, they need that document in order to like send the wire because it's still not guaranteed.
Right. Yeah.
And the call was at like 9:00 and I was supposed to meet with PestCo at 10. And so, you know, I'm leaving the mechanic's place because I met him at 6 a.m. at the airport. And I'm driving back and I'm like, I'm so freaking hungry, man. So I stop at Chick-fil-A and we're on the call and the buyer's council's on there, the seller's council, my broker, everyone's on there. And they're like, I think it's going to get pushed till tomorrow. Like the carrier's not here and, you know, it's probably not going to close. And one of the guys from the PestCo team says, can we not call him and see what's going on? And I'm like, got it on mute. I'm like, I'll take a bacon, egg, and cheese, you know, like I'm like, this isn't happening again. This is the craziest thing in my life. And then they're like, all right, they're here. Like we're on. I was like, all right. So I pull up and park in the Chick-fil-A, you know, parking lot, which is crazy. It just hit me like a mile away from where we started, that Cameron Ranch.
Wow.
Okay. And they go through and there's like a checklist that all like the buyer's council has, the seller's council, the broker. And so they'll go to each of them and then they'll read off their checklist and then it's like, we're good. And it gets to me and they're like, Cameron, do you approve this?
Yeah.
And I kind of joked around with them like, no, I'm changing my mind. They're like, too late. And at that time it was like, whoa, like I'm joking, but that was a little rough, you know?
Yeah.
And then they're like, PestCo, are you good to close? And they're like, yes. And so the buyer's representative, congratulations, you know, this deal is now closed. And then like, that was the first time because it honestly didn't feel real. Even when I was up there presenting to the people that it was like, my baby's gone. And I just like, that was the second time I started like really crying and like, this is great. Like, this is the craziest experience ever, you know? And I remember going to the office and it was the first, no one was doing anything wrong, but the whole PestCo team was there like in meetings. And it was like, I felt like not wanted at Green Mango. And it was just, and I went home like, and I didn't know because I didn't feel like it was real. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I remember I just drove home and hung out with my kids that day. And it was just, all right, like this is the next chapter of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a crazy story. You know, I love you have an incredible story, by the way. And I think that story in and of itself, you should tell any opportunity you get because, it reminds me of the Eric Spofford story that I told you. And it's just super inspirational, right? Because I think every entrepreneur aspires for that day, right?
Yeah.
It's like this magical day in the future, you know, at some point. And to hear other people's stories about how it all went down and how it came to be and how it happened in the psychology and the thought process. And it's really cool, dude. And I'd imagine I've talked to a lot of people that have gotten acquired and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast, which is like, it's almost a weird thing. It's a catch-22, right? Because you get the very thing that you potentially, a lot of entrepreneurs wanted their whole life. And then now you're sitting there and you're like, now what? Like, now what do I do? And it almost like, and I've never sold a company, not at that scale. I've sold small companies. But I would imagine it's almost like really euphoric, like amazing, like you're super happy and you're almost probably like, not depressed, but like in a weird way, like you're like in a funk at the same time, like those following couple days or week, because you're kind of like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like what now? What do I do? Like, what do I do with my time? Like did you experience that at all?
Yeah. And what's crazy is I thought once I sell, like my stress will go away. I talked to you about this in our podcast, but now I've worked 15 years to get this money. Now I have it. And now there's this stress that what do I do with this money? There's so many different tax strategies to do and trust and investments to make of what's your goal? Are you trying to triple this money? Are you just trying to have, just trying to keep the, capital preservation? Are you, what's your goal? And so now the past 3 weeks has been meeting with too many financial advisors and advice. Everyone's got a different opinion, just like business. And now there's that stress of, man, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And so that's the game that I'm playing now, is trying to figure out the best investments, who to trust with this money. And, I don't know. It's just a crazy
different type of stress. Yeah. Really cool, Cameron. My final question for you is, what would be your number one piece of advice for a young entrepreneur looking to get involved in maybe starting a potential home services company, really any company for that matter, but let's say home services? What would you say to them?
Just what we've been talking about today is that it all starts with the product. So find a product and be premium in that product and don't alter from it. And then just stay consistent. That's it. And in the society that we live in now, everyone wants instant gratification. As long as you can stay consistent, you're going to win, because everyone else is giving up so fast now.
It's so powerful. Yeah. Really, really powerful, Cameron. Where can people find you?
See Bawden on Instagram. Obviously we have the LinkedIn, Cameron Bawden, and all that. And then the YouTube, the Premium Mindset.
Yeah. We'll link all that down below. Maybe even down below, Jacob, we can link, our podcast that we did together. People can go watch that. The first one that you and me did, and then the ones that I did on yours. That'd be really cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It was an honor. I can't wait to have you on in a couple of years, see where you get coconut cleaning. And I know you're going to take coconut to the moon, and I'm excited to watch you.
Appreciate all your support, man.
Of course. Hey, if you're still watching, I greatly appreciate you staying to the very end. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Comment, leave a review, and we'll see you in the next episode.